You are now listening to For All Nerds Show, a podcast about geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. For All Nerds is hosted by DJ Ben Amin and Tatiana Keene Jones. For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.
And what's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the For All Nerds Show, the voice of the urban geek, where we discuss geek culture from the perspective of people of color. And as always, it's your boy DJ Ben Hameen, aka Luthen. I remember Luthen, aka Big Sur for Kids, aka You Done Messed Up Now, Andor. Yeah, I know those were terrible, folks. But as you hear by my Andor related AKAs, which weren't that great, we are here to discuss the season 1 of Andor, now on Disney Plus. The whole season is now out. Me and one of my guests talked about the first 4 episodes, but since then we haven't had a chance to reconvene. But now we are here to discuss the entire episode. But before I introduce him, let me introduce the lovely woman in the house tonight, Dr. Drea, rejoining us. Please let the folks know who you are.
Thanks so much for having me for this conversation and on the show. My name is Dr. Drea, aka It's Talocan, not Talocant, aka the missing Canary sister, aka
Okay.
biggest fan. As you know, big fan. Happy to be here.
And we are very happy to have you here. I know you got some, I saw just before we started that you have some news we'll discuss later on. I saw you tweeting out some stuff. But, you know, before we get to that, yes, hustling,
Yes.
doing all kind of different things. I love to see it. And before we get to that, though, let's introduce our other co-host. Longtime listeners know him. But, Mellow, please let the people know who you are.
What's going on? It's Mellow Brown once again, aka Gloop Shitta, which I am still so happy that's a real Star Wars name.
All right. What is that? Glute? What? Say it again.
It is Gloop Shitta.
Glute? Shido?
Like glup. Like if you could think of like the sound of like you just threw like molasses on the ground, like just glup.
Glup.
Glup Shitta. It is it's that level of Star Wars audacity when they come up with names.
Which, yeah, and I know you mentioned that the first time, and I did not get to mention this the first time we reviewed the first 4 episodes of Andor, but let me bring it up now because I don't even have him in my characters list. But the fact that the droid is named B2 Emo and is the most emo little droid in the world that's peak of Star Wars right there, because when he first rolls up and I'm like, they really call this man B2 Emo, and then he's straight up emo as hell. Hats off, because he is now one of my favorite Star Wars droids of all time.
I was gonna say you joke, but I would die for him.
Yeah,
My life was on the edge up till the very last episode, and I was just holding my breath, hoping that this little droid would survive the riots. Right?
Yes. No, and that, I mean, no, all right, we're gonna have to talk about Andor, and Dre, I don't know how you feel about the series as a whole, so let's just ask you, because me and Mello have a very gushing view of this show. So let's see if anyone else has a different opinion about it.
Look, I know that there is a lot of criticism about Andor. It's too slow, it's dark, it's too gritty, it's not Star Wars, and I get it. You don't have the lightsabers and the Force and the little baby Yodas and whatnot. But for anyone who says, this isn't Star Wars, I just want them to look closely. You see it in the music, you see it in the characters, you see it in the actual war. There is a war happening. There is an impending, insidious tyranny that is in the landscape of Star Wars that we have to reckon with. And this show is a show I absolutely love as a psychologist because it asks us to pause a little bit on the oppression, on the survivorship, on those moments that really mean a lot in this bigger landscape. I've much more to say, but for now I'll say this is Star Wars to me, and I'm very much enjoying it. I recommend it, and I can't wait for the next season.
Yeah, and I've heard various things about when the next season is coming out. I'm really not trying to look forward to that right now because I don't want, I don't want to believe the truth of it being like 2024, which is one thing I saw, and I don't. Yeah,
It's 2 years, man.
Oh,
Yeah, we got to survive 2022.
yeah. I mean, I get it. I get why it would take so long. I don't want to take the way out that my man's had to take though. That's that is the one problem. All right, well, so I think we are all on the same page. I haven't heard. I mean, I myself, when I first watched Andor, I thought that the first 3 episodes, and I've said this again and again, are a bit slow. But I feel like it's relative slow because everything matters and everything comes back to matter. And I don't feel like there was one wasted minute in Andor. So I've heard the same criticisms about it's not Star Wars, and that's something I just don't understand. I get it, like you said, there's no lightsabers, there's no baby Yodas, but it is Star Wars to the core to me. It is what Star Wars has always represented the most to me, and that's the idea of hope against an oppressive system that is just, like one person can change the world. And, one person by stepping forward can inspire other people to step forward themselves and to change the world. So I think, I don't know, I fucking love this show. So it's tough for me to even be critical of it. But Mello, what did you think of, how it all wrapped up?
I think, well, I'm just going to give the short version and say that it's landed as one of the best television shows I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We had offline conversations about it where I was just like frustrated where I'm even while I'm right now here, I was just sitting back discussing with peers where it's just like, how did Atlanta season 4 and this land in the same year? And they both ended up in a place of just like, you can use the word masterpiece and it's not to be taken lightly. The other thing in regards to like if it's not Star Wars or anything like that, I've actually not shied away from that conversation because I don't necessarily think that's a wrong thing to say because that's if someone feels that way, that this is not Star Wars, then that's saying something about the limitations that we keep putting on the franchise. That it's not allowed to like stretch out and have discussions of why these characters that have always been in the background, that have always been in their really cheaply made orange and white suits that don't look nearly as cool as what the Empire has, who's like a bit more organized, things like that, that we've gone this long in the franchise without any of those things having substantial meaning. And we've seen that within like books like Rogue Squadron and things like that. But even then, those characters are established and their names are always like Rick Dope or something like that. And they have like a level of like superhero about them. So that way they need to equal your excitement to a Jedi to just a dude in a plane. But this is not doing that. It doesn't.
Not Rick Dope.
Like, no, they can't shoot down Rick Dope. But this is more in a place where it's just like the milkman who visits you every day asks you to organize, and that is why he is so fly. Like the people down the street where it's like, I can't eat tonight, and they just like, let me just find something in the cupboard, you can get me back later. That is the thing that would stop the Empire. That's the thing that would stop all Sith. They can't handle that. They can't handle the fact that we're talking to each other and that we feel a certain way. And we're probably going to get into it. I don't know how you want to do this. If you want to do it from like volume to volume, the way it's set up, but even going into like where we left off in the last podcast and right before the heist started, and the introduction of the character of Nemik and how that character may be essentially the most important character in Star Wars because of him being able to spread beliefs, make immediate action change, and then continue to spread that as legacy going forward through other characters that we'll see in the future. That is something that I'm just like, I've never felt that way about a Jedi before. And
Mm.
Wow.
it even makes you question things about the Jedi as a whole, even if even what they do is like fascism. Like, what are we talking about? I've never seen a Jedi arrest somebody. Like the minute they pull out a lightsaber, it's done. The person's not walking away from that. And you would question if the Rebel Alliance would want to align themselves with that kind of person at this point because of how they've seen just like what fascism can like overall do. And it brings up all these really interesting questions about you as a person. What would radicalize you? And even with like other characters, they're on the imperial side. They are also radicalized, just in the opposite direction. Like everybody needs meaning and a reason to exist, and they are like fighting tooth and nail within their personal lives to get to that point. And it's it's always been there. This has always been in the framework of Star Wars, just not discussed. And now that we're here, I don't know if I can go back. I'll be honest with you. I can't turn on Obi-Wan now. What am I supposed to?
Oh, I mean, I still like Obi-Wan, but okay, all right, there are two things I do want to bring up because I was rewatching the series today, just like had it on in the background. And when it gets to the heist and Nemec, like the climb scene, like you starting to talk about Nemec right there, I was tearing up because I started to think about the climb scene and him screaming climb at dude and, getting him out of there when he's dying. And like you said, his whole manifesto that then motivates Andor and then will motivate the whole universe. So like that's it's so powerful because it's like I said, every little character contributing to this rebellion in one way or the other, and every little character matters. And someone like Nemec, who you don't think much of, becomes one of the most instrumental parts of this universe, like you said. And something else that I saw on Reddit today that it just had me crying was like this whole thing is started over a religious war. And I don't think that's like addressed enough. I'm not sure that they've ever really talked about, like, I don't think the people, for one, know that. That's the thing. Like, they don't really realize that the Empire is because this dude is fighting off the Jedi and wants power and everything. And it's all about, differences in religions. And I don't think that this is going to be the show to really get into that. But I just think it's kind of hilarious that all of this is because these people have a difference over, pretty much their religion.
For me, this was a huge kind of message or series of messages around what it is like for a galaxy to go through this transformation where there's this new power. And, it takes 13, 15 years. There's about, I think, 15 years between Order 66 and what takes place in Andor. And we see the occupation of Ferrix. We see the clone troopers then be replaced by stormtroopers. We see what is actually a really rapidly accelerating oppression. And I think what I appreciate about the show is that it's because of its episodic, longer narrative, you have for me, just this clear idea that the Empire is attacking and exploiting and violating cultures. So you have the Donnies that during the heist, right? The Donnies are being exploited. There's nothing about what the Empire does with those sort of Northern Lights celebration that is been truly, genuinely celebrating this culture. They are exploiting them. The folks of Ferrix have been, occupied, reoccupied, and they're being exploited. Luthen's shop itself. What I appreciated about the show is that the cultural and historical artifacts in the shop, Plo Koon's breathing apparatus and the armor and, the holocrons, that's not there for fan service. That's there to tell us the wealthy are exploiting the histories and cultures of these pasts, of these conflicts, of these wars, of these peoples. And I think like that for me was, the writing and the narrative around that oppression and juxtaposed with kind of the homogeneity of the empire, the grays and the whites and the black uniforms, and just that idea, the uniformity, the sameness, the fixation on that kind of power is, for me, just so relevant and so necessary to tell this story. So I appreciated what they were saying in all of those details, and not cheapening it with, let's throw in a lightsaber or like a little, baby Yoda or whatever. It's like, no, let's make all of this. This is Star Wars. Let's be clear. This is Star Wars and you will notice it, but let's make it meaningful.
It's hilarious because it feels like it's exactly what George Lucas always wanted, and never necessarily had the freedom or ability to do it with who he was working with at the time. Which I wonder what his overall reaction would be to this particular series. I haven't seen him say anything about it because it is dealing with, like as you said, it's a hard colonization in very specific ways that they spell it out to you during the heist when they're talking about the Donnie, and when they're like, we told them to go down from the hill that they live at. And then we set up little entertainment stations. So that way, like you get tired, you can eat and you can chill out. And suddenly they just started breaking off more and more until there was only about 20 of them left, which is you just disrupted an entire culture. You separated them. And within these little stations, they're going to build their own cultures, and then they have they're spread out enough for you to control them. It is spelling out how the colonization of these people can happen in specific ways and like everyone within the heist stories, that was some of the best characterization I've seen this year in anything. And even going back to Mimic, and I just want to throw in real quick, pretty sure he was force sensitive. Like as I was like looking through it again, I was just like, I think they did throw a Jedi in here, and everyone think it's Luthen. Like, no, it's Mimic. Mimic, like they actually would ask him questions as to like, do you feel anything? Do you see something coming or anything like that? And he would get hunches. And like his whole like innocence could be considered like a connection to the light side, but the fact that he was willing to be like, sometimes you gotta kill a cop, probably separated him from a bit from further going into that. But those last moments when because when they're on the ship and he's looking at the like basically the coordinates on that little device and everything like that, it's not working. So the fact that he says like climb and dive at exactly the right times as he was like closer to death and closing his eyes and being pulled into it, I think that was like a really smart way to throw a Jedi in there without naming it. And kind of like showing that like they're still out there. This is why they're special. This is why they're important. But you don't always have to have them be the same thing all the time or specifically name what they are. It's just like sorry, just real quick. It's just like they do that with the Empire, where I'm so happy they're not wearing masks. I'm so happy that it's not just stormtroopers and like that you could like we talked about it a bit last time. I won't repeat myself too heavily, but the fact that you get to see the fascist face. And like there's so much of them just in uniform, and you get to see the insecurities and the weakness that they need to make themselves stronger. And anytime they've made an attack on anyone, it was from a fear of not being able to use their power enough to prove their stance. Even the initiating incident of the first episode is because of that. And not giving that a helmet is great. Sorry, go ahead.
No. That's all, because I definitely what you brought up about how they treat the Donnie people. And then, but it goes throughout this whole series. Like we constantly hear references, like you talked about how dehumanization of people. In the first episode, they say everything to Cassian about how, you stink, how they smell. They bring that up again with the Donnies. They're like, oh, they stink, they smell. It's always the dehumanization of people where it's like these people are not human, and they constantly group people like that. And we see that, and then it's also the dehumanization that comes with being part of something of the Empire, or even part. And what I think one of the, I mean, there's so many things about the show that I love, but I think Luthen's character and what it's shown, like one of my favorite quotes is, I think it comes from the a French Revolution, but I'm not sure exactly who exactly said it. But they said, when don't speak of revolution until you're ready to eat rats to survive. When you're ready to eat rats, then you can start talking about revolution, because you're going to have to do things that you're not ready for in a revolution a lot of times. And Luthen, like, everyone's talked about the speech, but we got to talk about it. And because for me, as even as a writer, I was expecting, he's like, what did you sacrifice? I, expecting in everything, something quick, just get this out of the way, you ain't on it. But when my man goes off on him, and I mean, the line for me was, I share my dreams with ghosts. And he said, I wake up every day to an equation that I started 15 years ago that has one outcome, that I'm a burn in hell, basically. Like, everything I've done is, I'm going to hell. I've got no ground left to stand on, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's just such an ill take. And I think this has been done very well in the Clone Wars anime. I think the animated Star Wars has always got a much better grasp on everything as far as the storytelling, as far as like breaking down what all this means. And I think Andor is the first one to do it in live action. And I think, The Last Jedi was trying at it. I think, like you said, I think Lucas was trying at it in the prequels, but I think it was just a lack of this or that where it didn't all come together like it did on Andor. So I think that's one of its greatest accomplishments. And I love, like, I mean, I could talk about Luthen all day because I just love how it's like so many levels to him. Like, when we first see him go into his shop and put on the wig and
that
come out.
moment was so perfect.
Him trying to practice the smile and everything. Like,
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that the show, and I think about this a lot, actually, because I know there's some pushback and people are saying, this isn't as exciting as the other shows. And I know that this show, for me at least, as a Latinx person, sees, finally central figures who are not only the actors are Latinx, but they are coded here to be the representation, the lived experience of the colonized or the other or the immigrant. And Ben, I appreciate that you mentioned that too, because the things that are said to Andor or about Andor are very specific. It's there's language that the Empire uses, the diseased, right? The germs. Like, we've heard all this before, but I think it's in episode 1, the guard. Andor's wet because I think it's in a storm, or he's in a storm, and the guard says a comment like, "Did you swim here?" And that, that is not a coincidence. That is a very denigrating, demeaning slur that is said to Latinx people, especially who are immigrants in this country. The idea of him constantly being wet. This comes up a lot in many. He's swimming, after prison break, he's swimming. He's in the storm. He's, it's a constant theme. And I don't think that's by coincidence. I think this is to raise those issues for us in very kind of important ways for us to like really think on this. But the point that I was trying to make here was, when I think about like why some people may not like this as much as they like Mandalorian, and I think to myself, like, well, Din Djarin and Boba Fett, they're also POC actors. So what's happening here? And I think you nailed it in the sense of like, in those other shows where they're central figures, they are rescuing the baby Yodas. They are fighting the aliens. Here, it's not really aliens. It's aliens just in the Star Wars universe. But these people are a little bit more like our IRL oppressors. And I think there's maybe some reaction to that, whether it's like really conscious or whether it's something that's a little bit around their fragility in watching a show like this.
Am I the Empire? I think is what a lot of people are asking themselves right now. Would I be part of the ISB? That's it's like, am I a corpo? That's what a lot of people are being forced to ask themselves. And I think that's why it might. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why the ratings, like I said, I think myself, it does start off where it's not something where if you come in from the Star Wars, where you've come in from Obi-Wan or from Boba Fett, it's not going to catch you in that same way. So I do understand that, but I think Andor is going to go down as the Wire of its, like of Star Wars, where it's going to be that show where years from now people are like, "Oh, have you seen Andor?" And they're like, "Oh, you haven't seen Andor?" And that's to be the thing. I think it's just
And
going to
then
be one of
people
those
still going
things.
to be like, I don't know about Andor.
Yeah,
It's got no laser swords.
yeah,
But at the same time, I also want to give a lot of people the benefit of doubt, where it's just like there isn't a lightsaber in it, and like there's no force powers in it, and like that Star Wars is the only place where Jedi exists. Therefore, I want to see Star Wars, and I'm like, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt and be like, yeah, I get it, you like the Jedi, and nothing wrong with that. Like, but at the same time, I think if the Jedi are in this particular place right now, where I am going towards like I want to see these like farm boys fuck up a police station more than I want to see someone use force powers to take down a Star Destroyer, then that's saying something about how Jedi are being written right now. Like they aren't necessarily super interesting as long as they're characters that don't have the ability to interact with rebels in any way and it'll compromise what they are. Like if a Jedi were to have like a slice of pizza and it'd be like, "This is the best pizza I ever had," then it's like you're a Sith now. You just spoke in absolutes, and like that's not that interesting. Like this is it. They can't fall in love. They can't like all these things that make Andor really special is that it is making you angry about legitimate things. It is riling you up. It is an emotional ride. It like seeing a man hit a dude in uniform with a brick meant more to me than any lightsaber I've seen light up in the past 5 years. And it's because of the emotion behind it. And it's providing gray to a universe that really, really needed it. And like the Jedi aren't really doing that right now. We're not really saying more interesting things. And then when we try to say it, good Lord, the backlash. So this feels like the solution. It's like if we made our own section that had to like we sacrificed Jedi in order to get these interesting conversations, then it had to happen. And now people are still like crossing their arms, like, well, when you going to put the Jedi back in? I'm like, well, you're an adult. When we can have that conversation.
But you just said you understood the Mellow, and then you're like, but now you're ready to cut the Jedi out. You're like, I feel y'all faults, but F it. The Jedi gotta go because I need more Andor.
It's like it I don't know. It's more interesting to me right now if you were to continue the franchise from where the last chapter is, being Rise of Skywalker. It would be Finn refusing, like completely against the fact that he's force sensitive, and more focusing on trying to free more of the like stormtroopers.
Yeah.
But in battling within himself, this other half of him he has to deal with, because that's where I feel like the franchise is at right now. Like those are the like more interesting conversations where he's just like, if I choose to be, like dip into the force, like the universe now tells me I have to be one of two things. Or I could choose to be interesting and pick neither of those things.
But see, I think that's the thing. I think there can be stories told with the Jedi that are interesting. I just feel like they've been too stuck on the Jedi and the Sith, or like let's say not the Jedi Force. Stories told around Force users that are interesting. Because to me, still, and I'm still anticipating it the most, is Ahsoka, because Ahsoka is the character that got me back into Star Wars because it was her refusal to I see the face there, but let me like because it's her refusal to be a Jedi that made me love her so much, and the whole what they broke down in Clone Wars, like just the other things that you meet that weren't Jedi and Sith, but were Force users. That was my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of Clone Wars.
It's the nuances of individual hopes and self-actualization and the reckoning that a lot of us go through. That was in many ways missing. And again, kind of repeating myself a little bit, it's not so much like when people say, we need more actors of color and people who are foregrounded in these stories. I completely agree. And I think too, when those stories resonate with us, that I think is another like meaningful part of this narrative and this part of the revolution in the Star Wars landscape for me. When during Rogue One, Cassian tells Jyn Erso, I don't know, she like, this is not really what happens, but like she suddenly realizes the importance of the rebellion and it becomes less about her and more about the bigger cause, right? She sees the bigger picture of oppression. She's like, I'm ready. I'm joining now. Like, let's go. She grabs a gun or whatever. And he looks at her and he's like, you need to sit down. Like, I've been in this fight all my life. And it's a respect. He doesn't say that to insult her. But there's a lot of truth telling around that. When a lot of us saw that scene, we felt very validated. Like, yes, we all want to join the cause. This is important work and this is community work. But I think just that visibility that we've been in this for, our lives, that concept, I think really, really kind of has so much truth to it. And when that happened in the theater, I just wanted to like stand up and cheer. And the like, yes. And then so I feel like the entirety of Andor is that line. That whole moment, is 12 episodes of just the, the nuances of what that means. What did he mean when he said that? And so that's the power of creating a character like this.
Yeah, I have no idea at what point in Tony Gilroy's life did he tattoo "fuck 12" across his chest. But I'm thankful for whatever phase is still lingering because there's something very specific that he's always saying within each of these arcs about like why you should fight back. And like no matter how small you are, no matter how like useless you may feel, that you need to like they can't take all of us is kind of like a big theme that he has in every single arc and every piece of this story. It's like if everyone's wondering like why is it slow for 2 episodes and then pick up on the third repeatedly, it's because what he's doing is like that little nuanced little like I'm watching you see people very similar to you break and like little rubbles keep falling down until you realize that like there's nothing left but something that's like angry and vibrating. And sometimes you need to point it at something that's doing that to you because that was the entire point of why those things should be breaking. You shouldn't be breaking as a person. You should be breaking that level of civility that they want to take control of that keeps you sitting in spot and accepting that kind of pain. That you become something so scary to your abuser and force that it is untenable for them to ever think about we were able to ever control these things and these people. And it's Tony Gilroy pulling off the dialogue and the motions in every single scene. Going back to even what you said about Luthen, it's a good speech if I've seen it parodied now, and it's just all over the internet. I've seen someone talk about like, "Why's your hoodie so bad?" And they're just like, "My closet is a sunless place. I share my swag with ghosts." You are on fire if you're getting levels of like the WandaVision quote like, happening to you over the internet when the internet's on fire right now, and it's still popping off like that. Like every piece of dialogue from every character is something special, and they're saying the specific things about like I love when Cassian's mother died, And all the things that he's expressing is that I am alone. I am terrified. And at the same time, I am becoming the person that she told me I was going to be. And that is, it is never said directly. It's said in his motions and just how he cares about Melshi in that moment. As Melshi's like, I want to go away. They kind of spread the word. And he little gestures, like he gave him his gun. The casting we've seen for the past 10 episodes will not give anybody a gun. And in that moment, he's just like, he's a part of something. He completely changes. And it's so small and it's so little and it's so important. And the show is filled with that for every single character. And yeah, it's just something special.
All right. We talked about the heist a little bit, and we talked about the best parts about it and everything. So I do want to talk about what happens after the heist, because for me, I think that was like the hardest part of this season. Everyone who knows, if you've listened to the show long enough, you understand I've been locked up myself in a foreign land, and it was way too familiar. Like, I'll be dead ass honest with y'all. Like, everything about it was fucking triggering. It was like the cleanliness of the prison, the everything bright, and just the way it operated, where it was just ran by the prisoners, was very familiar to me. And like, I think I hit you up, Mellow, after episode 8, because I thought the season only had 8 episodes. So when it ended with him stuck in prison, I ran to the internet like, how many episodes does Andor have? Because I had to sit for fucking 2 years and wait for this man to get out of this joint. Like, I was not ready for that. So I was so happy that they completed that arc and got him up out of there. But it also turned into, like I said, it was some of the hardest stuff for me to watch. But it was also some of the, just like, we all know Andy Serkis is a fucking monster, but to see him, oh my God, like you said, it's like, there's so many moments from the show that are gonna be parodied, that are gonna be iconic forever. Like, that's just love. What Marva tells him about when, you're gonna miss someone. That's just what it is. The speech that Luthen gives. And then, never more than 12. Like, I couldn't stop like, I wanted to punch through my TV. And then for the week after that, I'm just walking around like, oh, you got something against me? Never more than 12. Let's go.
The show is like taking amphetamines.
Yeah. And then, it's like, oh, I got to do more push-ups. Never more than 12. Like, it's like, no matter what I had, let's go, because it's just so, that's what I mean. It's that hope that Star Wars gives you that just, I just love it so much. But I did want to know how y'all felt about that sequence and that arc right there.
Sure, did you want to go first? Or?
So let me just start where he was being profiled. The moment.
Wait, sorry. I'm like, oh shit, K2SO, yay! No, this is horrible.
He's literally just he's just walking down the street. He is just walking down the street, and he gets picked up. And the moment that he's questioned, I'm just like, oh fuck no! Like, this is happening. He's going to jail. Then they give him 6 years for anti-imperialism speech and something else, resisting arrest. I don't know, something. And I'm just like, oh God, 6 years? Then we see this underwater gulag prison thing, and I'm just terrified, and you just feel with all of them in their cells and the numbers going, and the the electric floor. It's just this constant minute to minute fear, and it's just very crushing. It's very devastating, and I think the question comes about for following this character is, how does he get out of this? But how does he not let this experience impact his sense of self, his personhood? How does he continue to stay solid when he's being, like you said, he's dehumanized every single moment? So it's crushing. It's really, I think for me, that was the hardest. That was like that middle segment was really hard to watch.
Yeah.
I especially want to lean into exactly what you're saying about him being broken down in those moments too, and just give a shout out to Diego Luna, who knocks it out of the park when he first enters that prison for a whole episode and is being processed. And the only words that are really coming out of his mouth are like, "I didn't do anything," and he's just like shaking and terrified. And like, I wanted to check on you there, Ben, because I was just like, man, this is like insane and rough and like way too close to life.
It's way too close to life, like you said, because I was in that same situation where I was in a beautiful place, and then just like that, everything turns terrible. And it's that, like, what the fuck? When someone tells you 6 years, for standing on the beach, basically you're standing on the beach and you get 6 years for it. And it's just, I thought it was so ill. And then when they get out and when they go back to Space Miami, how you see the shit's desolate now.
Yeah,
no more people on the beach.
Oppressed to death. It's amazing. And birds fighting each other for food.
And it's just these little things like that makes this show so fucking insane. Like, you pointed this out to me, how the corpos, when Sergeant Dickhead first, does his uniform up, and he's like, "Oh, you did something to your uniform." And then in the next scene, all the corpos' uniforms have been done of trying to match. That. Yeah, they're all trying to get and mainly, his little underling dude. We're at fomenting. Pockets of fomenting.
When we get to the next part, I want to touch on him too, because where he ends, I did not expect. I did not see that coming.
The super man. And so, but yeah, to this, like the prison sequence, I mean, I feel like someone in that writer's room had definitely experienced some type of incarceration, because it was just so well on. Just the way that, once again, we keep talking about dehumanization and how it just turns every individual into a number. How, like he said, they don't need to listen to us. And I've been in that same situation where it's like, where the prisoners run the prison and they don't need to listen, because everything runs so smoothly that they're not worried about you. You're just an easily replaceable number. At any point, we got another one coming in and we can murder you off and bring in more. And go ahead.
Well, then, and that's the horror too. Like, yes, they are literally replacing them with one another and transferring, them from one unit to another, if not completely killing a whole unit, right? Or a whole floor. That idea of murdering the inmates is it's a horror within the fiction here, but it's a true horror that in many ways this is really happening. And as that unfolds, that one story within like the floor to floor communication and like, what happened on that floor? What's going on? When that's finally revealed, it's just chilling that's going on. No one is getting out of there.
So I'm going to cut to the key part of this storyline and ask y'all both. Kino Loy, like, what were your initial reactions the minute you heard, "I can't swim"?
I mean, it was heartbreaking, and it's also, once again, I was like, fuck these writers, because it's fucking perfect, because it's like, everything about Kino is so perfectly written, because that's why the Nevermore to 12 hit so hard for me, because it's not that he hadn't thought this whole thing through. Like, he'd already thought everything through. He knows it's never more than 12. It's not like where you had to think about, no, it's never more than 12, dog. I know how many motherfuckers on the floor. I probably know how many motherfuckers on the floor above me. It's like, and the one below. I know all this, but I also know that when I get to that edge, there's no way out. And like he tells them in his speech, he says, "I'm already dead. I'm going to fight, but I'm going to fight, but I'm already dead." And when he said that, I'm like, oh, that's that ill shit you say to a motherfucker when you go into war, like, fuck it, I'm going to die but no, it's not what he's saying right there. He's saying, I'm already dead. I know there's no way out. There's one way out for me. You know what I mean? And that one way out ain't the way out for y'all. Y'all got another way out. I got one way out.
The detail I like about this is that at one point, I can't remember if it's Luthen or Cassian, but someone says that, you know, we use their tools against them. And they do this in the prison break where they grab the guns and they, you know, essentially use the literal tools in that factory / prison to escape. And then I think the poetry here is that Andy Serkis's character, Kino, right? He has been a tool for the Empire for so long, and his reclaiming of power is, I will use this tool to rescue and basically get everybody out, knowing that he'll die in this process.
And that's it. It's insane to think that character is in a place where he mentally processed, and you're watching it from the beginning of the episode after they find out in the previous episode that information that they will not leave. And from the start of this episode, when he's processing everything that Andor is saying, and he's like denying it, he's actually talking to himself, and he's going through that entire phase of just like, I can live like this for the rest of my life, or tomorrow I die in an attempt to have the best moment that I will ever have in my life. And one thing that Andor says to him, he's like, better to die trying than to live doing what they want us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To the point where he repeats it when he's talking to the prisoners. He's given the speech, and he looks Andor in the eyes and says that to him, as like letting him know that was the moment I flipped. Like when you told that to me, I snapped. And everything he's saying to them, like run, climb, kill. Like if you get lost, pick the other person up. It is all just revolutionary socialist speech in regards to like, they can't take all of us. And they immediately overwhelm them. And it's even such a Pyrrhic victory when you go to the next episode and you just see Cassian and Melshi, and you're just like, they aren't sure. They are 100% not sure if anyone else made it out, if it was just two.
When they're on the side of the rock, climbing, I'm like, oh God.
And he's like, hold on. I mean, yeah, Diego is doing like God's work, like, you know, on this show. Like, because it's so, every scene and every, you know, his performance is so layered. There's so many, you see him going through all this, and it's just such a thorough line, like where he's still looking for his sister, where he has all this loss. I mean, when he gets out of prison and then, you know, his mother passes, and it, like I gotta say, this shit is way too hard for me because there's a lot of things that I've been through in my life. You know, like I went to prison and I was worried about my mom while I was there. And then when I came out very shortly after that, within the next couple of years, you know, it's like, that was it, you know, or it was a little longer than that, but it was still, and it's always like, well, damn, if I hadn't have gone, you know, I would have had that extra time and that grief and that and it's just, there's nothing, you know, it's like 1 minute, like he's on the phone. Okay, I'm coming home. Look, I got all this, you know, I'm free. And then, no, your mom's gone, dog, you know, and it's just like, he just on the beach and the sun is shining through the clouds and he's looking off in the distance. And it's just, Diego's just saying everything without saying a word. And it's fucking unreal.
The line that he says, the last thing he intended to say to her is the heartbreaking one, which is, tell her that she would be proud of me for becoming the man that she always thought I would be.
Yep.
And he never got to let her know that of what he is turning into.
But then the fact that she tells him that she already knew who he was gonna be, you know, just like a mom is like, you know, that the speech that his brother basically gives to him and tells him what she, you know, wanted to say was like, you're already smart enough, you already have everything. And when all of that comes together, you'll be a force for good like the world has never seen. Was, man, dog, like this show here.
Yeah, which is beautiful. Like even like his relationship with those people who are essentially his parents. Like the way that he used the code name of Clem,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
who was his father, who like that one scene in the finale where you saw that that's where he learned his tenderness and like how his resourcefulness came out of love and care,
Mm-hmm.
but like his defensiveness came from his mother, and the fact that that tenderness died first, that Clem was hung in a square and like in a town square in front of everybody, it says everything about like why one side won out over the other at the end of the day. And yeah, it's masterful writing. It's a beautiful storytelling.
Some of his father's words about when he's teaching him, the mechanics of things and spending this time with him, those words about, they're not looking down. We're got to look down into the rust. You got to, like pay attention to, I think he's saying what's at the heart, what's really fundamentally what's making us human, not this sort of superficial power grab, what's beneath that. And just even, Clem was not in the show very much. We had just a few moments with him, and they really just packed in so many meaningful lessons from this father figure. I really appreciated it. Did not expect to see in Star Wars such a harrowing image of this man, hanging in the public square. It's a decision I appreciate that they took. Yeah, definitely had an impact.
It's even like the thing that they really leaned into was just like how the Empire's oppressing love, and Clem being the first victim that we know on an intimate level is like heartbreaking enough. And then when we see it happen with Marva, and you get B2 emo, which give B2 emo to Emmy. I don't know. Like I was.
He said, "You could stay. You could stay here tonight."
He's like, I don't want to move on. I want Marva.
Yeah. Oh.
And he's just depressed, and like it's such a very nuanced way to show like grief. The fact that he was just like, I'm still charging. And he's like, no, you've been there all day. And the fact that they used the effects, that they were smart enough to use the effects to show that he's at 100%, but he just is not ready to leave. He is just in a state of depression. And the fact that we had Brazo, like Brazo the king, but like Brazo's just like, yeah, like, I am going to spend a night here with you because that's what you need, and Marvel wouldn't want you alone. It's showing a level of community within these characters that we have not seen yet for any droid I've ever seen in Star Wars, because they are treating them as a people. Like even earlier on, there was like the one droid, I believe it was him, that was being messed with, and they're like, "Yo, you got rights," like don't. It's so specific because it's just saying that like alien, like brown droid, like you, like if you're a part of this community and you contribute to this community and you fuck with us, no one's gonna fuck with
you. Yeah.
And that's, and adding love into that equation with all these characters makes it hurt even more and makes you angrier. At any moment you see any one of those dorks roll up in their stupid, like tailored suits, pretending that the cloth that they have is an actual sense of power over the people that they're oppressing.
All right, so we talked about the prison. We started getting into B2, so let's just talk about, the last arc of this. And I think, like, there's so many moments in the show that are going down to some of my favorite Star Wars. Like, I really have to say, I'm gonna say it now since we're doing this review. I think that Andor is moving into like my number one spot as like my favorite Star Wars property, thing that I've seen. I usually say Clone Wars and Rebels, but I feel like Andor is really, trying to creep up on them. And one of those moments, and this goes to another person we've talked about quickly, but I really want to shout him out, is Nicholas Bertrell, the composer for Andor, because the goddamn music, like tomorrow I'm going to just jam the soundtrack all day because this man is killing it. And in the final episode, the funeral march, the second line that they put on for Marvel was just, I mean, there's what's the name of the planet? Ferrix. Yeah, there's so much about Ferrix, like the sisters of Ferrix, the bricks. The fact that this whole planet seems to be like a junkyard planet where everyone is breaking down all of the, used up ships and warfare of the Empire and basically the rebellion or the Republic. And all of that is like talking, like even that is like a real world thing where it's talking about like countries like China and other places where they break down other people's warfare and bid ships that are no longer in commission. And it's a very dangerous, very deadly job, but they ship them out to other countries to do it. So it's like Ferrix is this place where these people have to scrap out a living, and then they get oppressed more and more, and they're already strapping out a living. So they're already like, look, dog, we're already just, but we have Ferrix, we're good with this. But when you try and take away even that little bit that we have, you're going to run into something. So it's been all these scenes on Ferrix and all this culture. You see like the drummer up in the tower that, we all love from the trailer. And then, when they're ringing the drums throughout the town, the first time the corporals come through there. And then for the music of the funeral march, it's just all this culture you see and all this feeling and all this humanity that you see the Empire doesn't understand, and because they don't understand it, it's going to be their downfall. And I just thought that was a beautiful way. And then Marva's speech was just the icing on the cake. Like if I'd woken up before, I would have burned these motherfuckers before this. But it's time. And I love seeing like the dude's reaction when they're like, "Wait a minute, what's this woman talking about? Hold on, wait. Is she talking about? Am I the Empire? Once again, like, am I the bad guys?"
Meanwhile, like Keeve and his boy in the corner over there, like, what is culture? What is seasoning? Like they're just completely confused about like
what's going on.
Why are there so many minorities here?
What demonstration is this? The wall of gloves, which became a meme, right? The wall of gloves is just a symbol of the humanity, the day-to-day labor, the community. They're all kind of different shapes and different colors, and they have their place there. It's super endearing. It's just super special. And to know that, again, with the flashbacks to learn, there was a time when Ferrix was occupied by the clone troopers, essentially, put the power dynamic in place, and then left these peoples to the security officers that were essentially ineffective and just kind of placeholders for that, more symbolic for that power. And then to bring the occupation back with this threat is, I think, for the people of Ferrix, like, enough is enough. And I think in that speech, what seemed really important in her message was like admitting that she had been sleeping too, that she had fallen during this time. She had been, kind of complacent during this time, and the idea that if you're slowly being choked, you are dying, but you don't notice it as maybe as much as if you have that a harder, more forceful choke. And I think this idea of raising the stakes and compelling the oppressors to react strongly, it's a tactic, but I think it's also a huge message to the people that we need to wake up. If we do not wake up now, it will be the end of us. And so it is in our best interest to do so. and all hell breaks loose, and it's terrifying. But I think it's that moment of it's like a breaking point, right? This is the beginning of the end, but this is truly the beginning.
This is the worst thing that could happen to the Empire. It's not the heist. The heist was to make them bleed and to show that you could that you can kill a giant. That if I can wound them in this way, then other people know that it's possible. Which is, but this right here is showing that people aren't afraid of them anymore, and that is the ultimate wound to this. And it very much ends like how a lot of real world riots end. They this place is shot up, but all they did was they're going to radicalize everyone else in this galaxy. No one else is really going to take this shit, and you're going to start seeing a shift in the culture around people. And what I'm hoping is I see a shift in the culture around everyone within season 2. Which, speaking of culture, one thing I want to tap into real quick, I think the funniest thing in this show that I laugh at every time I see it is when you go to Mon Mothma's place, and that set that she's always in, and her stupid family walks in, and they're in Jedi cosplay.
Yeah. I was peeping that.
What is that? Is that what that is?
When dude hopped into the car, and especially when he hopped in the car and he's sashayed in his robes in, I was like, hold on, he got on what is this? Why
it is cosplay. It is stupid looking coffee silk, and just he has the braid. They both got the braids.
They do have the braids.
Oh, they do have. The daughter has the braids.
Yeah, and he has the braids. He has the little the top knot, the back knot thing. Yeah.
And the way they're describing this is by having Luthen sell actual weapons and items and masks, things like that from the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. People are collecting it as replicas, as to I'm still I know my history. And
so what is it? Is it so it's appropriation?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's the whole daughter, that whole thing that she's in seems to be an appropriation of it too, as well. The
eye of the Watcher, may the Force be with you.
Yeah.
Two words that two sentences that come out of her mouth, and it's insane. That would happen. That would legit happen in Star Wars. People would appropriate the Jedi because you don't see enough of them. And because they're almost at a point of extinction and hiding, it's just I'm just going to take whatever, jacks that they still had in terms of their reputation, and I'm going to wear it as fashion. And this entire culture that we killed into fashion.
We see it with the, indigenous people in America. We see it with indigenous people all around the world, for that matter. So, yeah. Yeah.
That leaves the question of when you go into the next part of the story where Ferrexes are rising up across the galaxy. How many people are you going to see with the super braid anymore? Are we going to actually enter the point where, because that is the new interesting part of the story, the war is going to enter culture itself. And how is it going to affect people in just a day-to-day conversation? Mon Mothma can't hide within luxury anymore. Mm-hmm. And yes, she's doing a noble, she bought, what was it, my boy Saw Gerrera, how many X-Wings? He good. Thank you. But at the same time, every night she gets to go home. She was giving them, what was it, $100,000 a month, which is a lot of money to be moving and not noticed. If I was an Empire, I would have saw. I don't know. But it's
that's how much money the Empire has, what they're showing you. That where that don't even register on their accounting. And
I love that Saw, Saw didn't have too many moments here, but what he did offer was kind of that reminder that the growing rebellion is still segmented and has these different factions. Some are, more radical than others. Some are working from the inside, kind of in that divide and conquer methodology of again, I'm going to use the tools of the Empire against them. And what does that mean? That means education. That means wealth. That means, the culture of the oppressed, of the oppressors. And there's benefits to that. I scratch my head a little bit because I'm is Mon Mothma doing this the right way? Maybe this is the way. You got to be on the inside. How are you going to make change if you're not, empowered inside the system? And then, what you said really rings true. She has the luxury and privilege of at times being able to ignore what's happening to everybody else. So hiding in plain sight is a strategy, but is not one. Maybe is not one that that is, I don't know, as genuine or maybe as effective in the long run as some of these other strategies. Violence, nonviolence, radicalism, terrorism. Saw names all these different groups, the SEPs, the this person, that group, that other group. And it's such an interesting kind of like kaleidoscope of factions. And you realize that like these people all need to work together, or this is not going to be done.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Which is interesting too, because we're also going to see Mon Mothma take the lead in all that, and she's going to have to unite them all because we know the future of Star Wars, and Mon Mothma is in the lead. Luthen ain't nowhere to be seen, so I guess that's. I'm really excited to see season 2.
I didn't expect. I fully, Luthen already knows he ain't gonna be seen. Like Luthen's already like, Luthen's like that, psychic who's read the script for Rogue One. He's like, look, I'm not in that movie, bro. Like, this is where it ends for me. But
I still wonder if Mothma's gonna be the one to do it.
Wow. I love. I mean, that's like we'd be here all day. We studied and talked about like the corporate side as much, but Mon Mothma and the actress playing her is doing, once again, like everybody on the show is killing it. Because when Mon and her cousin, her cousin's another one who's fucking killing it, going in between, this rebel on the ground to dressing up nice and being like, oh, I just came to see my niece and everything, is so brilliant. And then like when she did that scene when she's like, oh, I just came here to see you, and leaves Mon, and Mon is sitting there silently, and it's these silent shots where these actors are just like, what the fuck? Because she just barely has the tear dropping out of her eye. And it's like, God damn, woman, you are, like hats off, all the props, everything to you, because you're killing it. But I know we got to wrap up pretty soon. So I do want to bring up, like, we haven't talked about Deidre as much, and we haven't talked about Cyril, who Cyril was my man early on in this show. Like, I couldn't front. I love Cyril because I think it was like showing that, like people with the, like he might not have the best intentions, but Cyril isn't really trying to be like an evil person. He just wants to do the job right, and he just on the wrong side. Yeah, no, by the end of it, I'm like, fuck this dude. Cyril's like desperately evil. Like he trying to find the evil out there.
Well, what Mello said before, I think is absolutely true for Cyril, that search for mattering, that search for purpose, and he's fixated on it. I mean, I wish that the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, or what I call In Your Business Bureau, is I wish they had an EAP, an employee assistance program, with a counselor or a psychologist, because Cyril needs.
Cyril needs a hug.
To talk to somebody. Yeah.
The Empire is not going to give anybody therapy. They will never. They can't have people being sane and realizing exactly what they are.
Can't bring self-awareness to the staff.
So yeah, how do y'all feel about Deidre and Cyril though? I mean, like I say, I'll say this. That was one moment of the show where I was kind of like, I did not like the ending with Cyril and Deidre. Like, I thought that was kind of a bit goofy, even like their whole, when he grabs her up out of the crowd and then they're in the, pressed up against each other and they're all, I don't know, that moment just, I was like, I guess I wanted Deidre to die right there.
You don't think love belongs in the Empire?
I guess so. Yeah. It's so gross. Like I'm the one who watches Game of Thrones and stuff and loves like, the Lannisters. Like I love the grossest relationship. But this one is just a little too far for
It
even me.
crosses the line.
Yeah, this crosses the line. Incest is fine.
Not uncle and niece. But
Yeah, no, that's fine. No,
like
that's
they can
all
have sex
good.
riding dragons, but
Yeah,
not,
whatever.
not
They
the
can't have
incel
love in the
and lady
Empire.
boss.
No, I just don't. It's not that. It's not the love. It's the fact that this dude is like such a
The
fiend.
incel and the lady boss. It's
Yes, there we go.
Really weird. It's super weird. Like the fact that like bro, you went to her job. You follow her
He's
to
like
work, my
stalking
guy.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some incel stuff
Mhm.
happening with like, I'm gonna force you to pay attention to me.
Yep.
I'm gonna come to your work, like you said. I'm going to make you. The woman has said, "Don't bother me anymore." Like literally, do not talk to me anymore. And he persists, and there is something gross about that. Like he
really
keeps doing
gross.
that. It's super gross. And I think maybe the psychology of this is that what he is falling for, what he's possessed with, is her ability to access power,
Mhm.
is her ability to find, because she kind of went rogue too, right? So I think her ability to find meaning within the power that she's granted, but also a sense of individualism that he doesn't get to have in his now mediocre job with his mediocre house and his mediocre cereal. And there's kind of some his blue milk cereal. There's soggy cereal.
She's like, oh, you still a little ass boy. You still got a race car in the bedroom. You know, you still got you got clone action figures. You mark. Like it's just there's something. If I was to make a prediction as to what would happen next between these particular two, and like in game, I think she will kill him. That's really the only thing that you could really do with him in that regards, because I think he will rise in power the next time we see him. It's going because it is a parallel between him and Andor on their journeys within like their different groups, and she is going to probably trust him for a bit, but he is a person who thinks he's Tarkin. He thinks he could be an Admiral Tarkin, but at the same time, he don't have the juice. He just keeps ending up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and because he is intelligent, and that takes him to a point. But he has no self-awareness about him, his environment, his universe, how things work, how they function, and it also tells the kind of the negative parts in radicalization, where as you were saying earlier, Drea, in regards to like there's so many groups that Saw Gerrera is saying like are involved in this. They're all in it for a different reason, but they all have the same enemy. So the minute that the enemy is defeated, they break up, and you're like, well, oh my God, we got a different mess to figure out. And that's not that different from what the Empire is dealing with, where you have one person who is there completely just for power what is her name? I'm so sorry. Deidre. She's there specifically because she wants justice. She's afraid of the crabs in the barrel. And like that death for her would have been like the horrified look on her face is brilliant, because it is the exact death that she would be afraid of.
Mhm.
The crabs rising up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other thoughts about this season, or what that you would like to see in season 2? I mean, other than more of this greatness.
I think, a theme that I appreciated kind of started with Luthen and his version of code switching and telling us about performances and what we're gleaning from that, the social performances that we do, the masks we wear, Andor even calling that out and saying, in fact, I can do the things that I do because of my class. I can move between visibility and invisibility. I have yes, I'm of lower class. I'm a factory worker. I'm an immigrant, but I'm sort of leveraging those parts of my identity for survivorship, for self-actualization, for kind of reclaiming my own personhood. And I think that's brave to include that narrative about his positionality and the classism that's going on in these, that's named in these conversations. And that we see it with Mon Mothma, we see it with Luthen, we see it with Andor. We see it a little bit with Cyril, even just sort of the performances that they do in order to kind of like find their own personal successes. And the fact that there's different stakes for them is really important to note too. So I just, I think every conversation between Luthen and Andor, and just about every conversation in the shop, is a study. And it is meant, I think is meant to make us pause and think on how those kind of like identity transitions and that code switching that we do and that survivorship that we have, the things that we do that have reason, that have kind of self-empowerment, and I think have some positive aspects to that. I really embrace that part of the show.
I second that as the thing that I like. I'll keep mine short. Was I like hearing people posit the question: is Luthen a Jedi? And the reason why I actually like that is because it's win-win. Either way, I like the thought of like if he is a Jedi, he's doing the thing. He sacrificed himself from the Force. That entire speech of like my mind is a sunless place is you could turn that to look at like he's describing what it feels like to no longer have the Force with you. And that is a really interesting thing because that's also saying that he's a character who is doing the things that Obi-Wan and Yoda would not do in terms of like just turn to the people around you instead of isolating yourself in order to actually make change, you idiots, in order to start to have a revolution rise. And the other way is like if he's not a Jedi, then dope. It took somebody who wasn't a Jedi to pull this off. And that's a really fun question to me because they keep hinting at it. That thing that the guard looks at, is that a lightsaber? Why has he got lightsabers on his ship? Why do you give this speech? It sounds like he's not disconnected or that he's disconnected from the Force. There's a lot of hints there. And yeah,
the Kyber crystal.
Yes, he gave a man a Kyber crystal.
Where'd you get that?
That's. And the thing is, I guess I'm not paying. Like, I muted Andor on Twitter when the first episode started because I didn't want to, get spoiled and stuff. So I haven't seen. Like, I missed the gloves meme. I'm like, oh, I gotta go see that because there's a lot of stuff that I'm missing, I guess. And I missed this whole discussion or whether or not he was a Jedi. And I'm like, wow, that does make it, But I think that is the best interpretation of it is that he's someone like even further off than Ahsoka, who's like, nah. This ain't right, and just left it all behind, and did what he had to do, and that is where we see him at now. He's basically what Obi-Wan would have been if Obi-Wan had made some like, I don't know, I wouldn't say the right, but more direct action, like more like let me do something instead of just, instead of crumbling, instead of crumbling, and hiding, let me actually, say fuck it and go to war. So, yeah, I mean, I love Luthen. I don't want to see him die. I know he's not around now, as far as we know, but, I don't want to see the scene of him getting the laser blast or however he goes out, because I'd rather just, he's off in some other part of the universe and we just haven't heard about him right now, but we'll see. I guess we got, a long 2 years.
He's out there with my dog from when I was 7,
Yeah.
Like he's somewhere out there just running through the fields. When my goldfish is out there. Yeah. Luthen's okay. He's fine. They all end up okay, right?
The one that I want to see is Saw Gerrera get his legs blown off. Because Saw Gerrera is he still has legs. I had to check again to make sure. But he still has legs the last time we see him in this episode.
Does he not have legs in Rogue One?
He does not have legs in
Rogue
One.
He doesn't have legs. He barely has lungs.
That is a
He doesn't have lungs. He don't have legs.
He's on
he's got 2 steps
from death.
He's like, bruh, you got a sleep machine during the day. What's happening?
You got sleep apnea when you're walking around.
He's 2 steps away from General Grievous at this point.
And that's the funny thing because I rewatched Rogue One, and when he first takes the breath of it, they put the Darth Vader noise over his breathing machine. like to indicate that he's that close to being,
it's not
Machine.
that different.
Yes, yeah.
Well, it's not that different on the other side.
Yeah,
It's
there it
saying that
is,
like
yeah.
all the
Mhm.
sinister things that like what we watched with Luthen and Saw within episode 11 is actually like the first time a little bit of Saw's humanity went away.
Yeah.
And what we see in Rogue One is a result of like more and more of that went through with time, where like this is the first year in Andor, and Andor season 2 is going to cover 5 years.
Yeah.
And within those 5 years, he's going to deteriorate his own humanity just for this cause, and like it's not even going to mean anything that's like human to him anymore, and like it's going to show in his exterior. So that even going back and looking at that episode of him being like, let's just call this war. That is the moment where like he's no longer like he gave up his humanity in that moment. He lined up with with Luthen, and just like, this is our fate.
With that sunless place.
We will never. We're fighting for a sunrise we will never see.
Yep. And I love, because especially going from Saw, from the young Saw that we saw in the Clone Wars, like his transition to the Saw that you see in Rogue One, and the fact that because I remember when people saw Rogue One, they're like, how the hell did we get from the Saw we knew to this dude? And now to see that transition, even, with just the snippets that we're getting to see of Saw, is so great. And like you say, everyone gets these lines because that, let's just call it war, that was a cold-blooded ass line. And yeah, but no, Saw has, like, that's when he walks in, that's his feet are walking in Rogue One, and he has it's all robot from, down there. So yeah,
and his paranoia is up to 11.
I mean, he tortures, one of our heroes of Rogue One. Like, he uses Bull Gullet on him, the mind mission.
Like, where'd you get a sucky alien?
Yeah, like, where did you get and how are you on a first name basis with it is the other thing. Like, first and last name basis, dog. He calls him Bull Gullet. Like, my man knows his whole name. He's like, Bull Gullet does this and that. Bull Gullet. Like, you know way too much about this thing right now, bro. You
just need Star Wars to name Pokemon.
Yeah. It is gonna be tight, bro. The next season gonna be tight on Saw Gerrera. That is one guarantee I can give viewers. It's gonna be tight. All right. Before we get out of here, please, everyone, let's start with Drea. Let them know where they can find you at, and I know you got something you just announced on Twitter, so let the people know about that as well.
Please come visit my website, drdreapsychology.com, or visit Twitter while it is still thing. And Instagram at Arkham Asylum Doc. I'm also on Hive at Dr. Drea. There you can find my podcast, The Arkham Sessions, which is all about the psychology of Batman, and then the MCU, and then Star Wars. So we actually just covered the episode 4, or what I've been calling episode 4. Maybe others call it just Star Wars. And our biggest debate about that episode was Luke Skywalker privileged? So big debate on that.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a good debate, because I don't think he was.
My man bitches all through it. That's all he complaining about everything.
I said no. I said he's out in this remote farm. My biggest, I think, argument was there's sand on the floor. Like, he lives on sand. I don't think he's
But everyone there does. The whole of Tatooine lives on sand. Like, why is he the one complaining about it?
Well, I mean, he's born into the Witness Protection Agency.
He don't know that, though, at the time. He just knows he's born there. He just like...
Yeah, and he's like, it sucks.
That's privilege.
And it legitimately sucks. He is in the hood. We established he is in the ghetto.
I get it, but when you grow up in the ghetto, you don't be like, yo, the ghetto sucks. No, we all here. You got to, we know.
He had the awareness that he needed to get out.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, he is privileged because he has ultimate nepotism as his superpower. But that's a whole other thing.
Yes. So we got into it. We actually covered 2 episodes of episode 4 because this debate kept going. So that's my podcast, The Arkham Sessions. Come check it out. And then, yeah, I've been, I just wrapped up a digital series that's um, a promotion for a video game called the Callisto Protocol. So I've been posting that on Twitter, on Instagram. You can find it on my website. It's super cool. It's just celebrating horror themed video games. So if anyone has played Dead Space before, the Callisto Protocol is a game that's very similar to that, and is just very, very graphic. Like when I was shown some of the scenes, I'm just like, you want me to talk about what? Like this is really, really harsh stuff, really traumatic stuff. But the game, it looks super slick, just really, really amazing actors. And that's where you can find me and my work. And I just want to thank everybody for listening to the show.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited, but it's not a game I will ever play. Like, I watched the trailer and I was like, damn, that looks good, but no.
I'm already like, I gotta pay extra for the extra deaths. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, it looks so good. I can't lie. I was like, damn, these graphics are incredible. But yeah, when the thing burst out as the other person, I was like, yeah, all right, I'm good. Yep, passing. Mellow, where can the people find you?
You can find me, just look up Mellow Brown anywhere. If you see me on Twitter, I'm only there because I got a deadline announcement for a TV show coming up. But after that, I'm probably going to ghost that musty old website. So you can actually find me at Mellow Brown on Hive. You can find more of my work. I wrote Blade Runner Origins. So if you want to hear the same level of radicalism be applied to replicants and them giving their identity, see that franchise as well. I am in Shondaland, so if you watch stuff with firefighters and nurses, you probably saw some stuff I did. And yeah, that's about it. That's about it for me.
All right. As always, and we still cannot make our announcement yet, so we'll keep that under wraps for now.
That's coming.
Yeah, still.
When is that coming?
God, if I only knew. After we close, I'll tell you more. After off the air, I can tell you more about that.
It's big though.
It's very. That's the worst part. But yeah, we just keep quiet. God, just keep quiet. All right, you can find me at DJ Ben Amin on pretty much all social medias. I have not started a Hive yet, but For All Nerds is on Hive, so we are over there at For All Nerds. You can also follow at For All Nerds on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere pretty much. If you're listening to this podcast and you already know where to find us on the podcast, but if you're not, if you're watching us on twitch.tv/forallnerds or youtube.tv, I always fuck that one up. Just find For All Nerds on YouTube. We on there as well. And search for All Nerds on all of the best podcast platforms. We're on all of them right now. Make sure you tell a friend about us. You can get our merch, which I am wearing one of right now. Let me move this mic out the way. This is the Galactus and Friends. This is all Galactus's heralds and their real names. This is that ultra nerdy, dorky stuff right there for the, real heads. You can find this and other designs at forallnerds.com. Right now, available everywhere. Get yours, and it'll get to you soon. Thank you very much for all the support and love. We will be back with more For All Nerds stuff very soon.